A leopard had a honey badger pinned by the throat in Kruger National Park, and two tourists were filming what they thought was the end of the badger. 20 minutes later, the leopard walked away limping. The badger walked away annoyed. This little guy weighs about 25 pounds, eats venomous snakes for breakfast, and has been documented castrating fully grown lions. So why is the most aggressive animal in Africa also one of the smartest? And why does almost nothing in the wild want to mess with it? Let's get into it. To understand the honey badger, you first have to throw out everything your brain wants to do when you look at one. It looks like an overfed skunk wearing a bad gray wig. It waddles. It's about the size of a small bulldog. Your gut tells you this thing should be lunch for anything bigger than a jackrabbit. Your gut is wrong. In the savannas and dry brush of southern Africa, where lions, leopards, and hyenas prowl the same dusty roads, the honey badger is the one animal that almost everybody else has quietly agreed to leave alone. That Kruger encounter is a perfect place to start. The tourists who caught it on camera, Matthew Lee and Tejal Mathura, pulled over, expecting a quick predator kill in a stretch of open bush. What they got was 20 minutes of one of the loudest, scrappiest fights ever filmed in the park. The leopard, easily 3 times the badger's weight, had every physical advantage. Bigger jaws, longer claws, more muscle, more speed. And the badger just refused to lose. It twisted inside its own skin, it bit back, it screamed like a furious goblin, and eventually the leopard gave up and slunk off into the trees. The badger sat there in the dirt for a moment, then trundled off in the opposite direction, looking like a guy who just won a bar fight and is now wondering where his keys are. That's not luck. That's biology. The first thing the honey badger has going for it is a body built for one job, and that job is not dying. The skin around its neck is about 6 millimeters thick, which sounds small until you realize that's roughly the same thickness as the leather on a heavy work boot, wrapped all the way around the throat of an animal the size of a corgi. Predators try to grab that area because the throat is usually the soft place where life ends. On a honey badger, they're biting into what's basically built-in armor. The skin also fits loose. Really loose. So loose that when a leopard or a python has hold of one part of the badger can twist around inside its own skin and bite the thing that's biting it. There aren't a lot of animals on Earth that can essentially turn around inside themselves while being chewed on. The honey badger can. Even the ears are shaped for combat. They sit as little ridged, minimal slits flush against the skull, almost invisible, because anything that sticks out can be torn off in a fight. So this animal isn't just brave. It's evolved with a body sketch that reads like a checklist titled, "Things that don't get you killed." And then there's the venom thing, which is where the honey badger crosses from tough into genuinely strange. Up to a quarter of the honey badger's diet in some regions is venomous snakes. Cobras, puff adders, mambas, the kind of snakes that drop large mammals in minutes. Researchers have documented honey badgers calmly eating a cobra, getting bitten on the face during the fight, falling asleep for a few hours like they just had a heavy lunch, and then waking up to finish the meal. That sounds like a cartoon. It's a real thing biologists have watched happen in the field. The reason is buried in the badger's nervous system. Most snake venoms work by jamming themselves into a specific receptor in animal muscles and nerves called the nicotinic acetylcholine receptor. The toxin slots into that receptor like a key in a lock, paralysis follows, breathing stops, the prey dies. The honey badger evolved tiny mutations on that same receptor, and those mutations change the shape of the keyhole. The toxin shows up, tries to plug in, and slides right off. The cobra's deadliest weapon is essentially trying to open a lock that's been changed without telling it. Even weirder, the same trick has independently evolved in hedgehogs and in pigs. 3 completely unrelated animals all stumbled onto the same molecular fix for venom. Convergent evolution. different branches of the family tree finding the same solution because the problem of dying to a snake bite is just that universal. If you're enjoying this little guy as much as I am, hit subscribe. More stories like this on the channel every week. Now, back to the badger. Up to this point, the honey badger has been mostly winning on body and chemistry. That was about to flip into something even harder to defend against, which is brains. Honey badgers aren't just tough. They're smart in a way that makes zookeepers a little nervous. Behavior researchers, including teams featured on PBS Nature, have filmed wild and captive honey badgers, picking locks, stacking objects to reach food, opening gate latches, and rolling rocks under fences they wanted to climb. One captive male in South Africa, named Stoffel, became famous for breaking out of supposedly badger-proof enclosures over and over by inventing new tools out of mud and sticks. Field biologists looking at brain anatomy point to a well-developed prefrontal cortex, the same general region that handles planning and problem-solving in primates, as a likely reason. Most of the animals that try to fight a honey badger are running on instinct. The badger is, in some small way, thinking. That brain plus that body plus that immunity is why you can find old ranger stories from places like Kruger, written down by people like the early park warden James Stevenson Hamilton, describing fully grown male lions in the bush whose backsides looked like they'd lost a fight with a chainsaw. The most likely culprit was a honey badger that climbed up from below during a scuffle and went for the softest, most undefended target available. There are documented accounts of lions essentially being castrated by honey badgers and bleeding out from those wounds, which is a sentence I am still partly unwilling to believe, even as I'm saying it. Then there's the chemical card the badger plays before the fight even starts. The honey badger has anal glands that produce a pungent yellow liquid it can squirt or smear when it feels threatened. The smell is genuinely awful, somewhere between rotten garlic and skunk, and it does more than just gross out a predator. In a tight space, that smell can disorient bees long enough for the badger to raid a hive, and it can make a curious leopard or hyena think twice about taking a closer look. Before the badger has even thrown a punch, it's already chemically wallpapering the room with the message, "You do not want this." Add all of that up. Armor skin. Loose mounting. Venom resistance shared with hedgehogs and pigs. A brain that picks locks. Glands that make even hungry predators flinch. And then the temperament to back it all up. Because none of this would matter if the honey badger were shy. It is not shy. The honey badger is one of the only animals on the planet that will charge an adult lion, an adult buffalo, or a vehicle that startled it, and not slow down. Guinness Book of World Records once listed it as the most fearless animal in the world, and that title is not really an exaggeration. The wild thing about the honey badger isn't that it's tough. Plenty of animals are tough. The wild thing is that this little guy is what happens when nature stacks every defense at once on top of a personality with no off switch. It's why nothing in the African bush, from cobras to lions to leopards in Kruger, has figured out a clean way to deal with it. The more you look at the honey badger, the less it feels like a single weird animal, and the more it feels like a small lesson the savannah keeps trying to teach the rest of us. Size is just one variable. Aggression at the right level can be a survival strategy. And sometimes the most dangerous thing in the bush is the one that looks like it shouldn't even be there. If you liked this one, there's more stories like this on the channel.